Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Stay tuned to the end of the show to hear how you can get a copy of this program and other helpful documents. And now it's time for Kerry McCoy to get all up in your business.
Thank you, Chris. If right now you're sitting at your computer, you might want to watch us live on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. It's kind of fun to see what goes on behind the scenes. It's reality radio. Today, as with really every day, a lot is going on. For all you audiophiles out there, we are still playing with our new toy, the Sling Studio. There are 5 people in here playing with the Sling Studio. This hardware, in case you don't know, is new to the industry, and I believe it will soon revolutionize the quality of live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and all those other platforms. I think we're going to get a lot of amateurs turning pro with this new piece of software, Sling Studio. Anyway, you can see it in action if you want to on our flagandbanner.com's Facebook page right now if you go there. We also have a new co-host, in case you heard him. He just opened up the show, Chris Colton. Say hello to Chris Colton.
Hello.
Y'all, everybody our listeners may remember you from B98 a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Welcome to the team, Chris.
Thank you very much.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
it.
This show, Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, began as a platform for me, a small business owner and a guest, to pay forward our experiential knowledge in a conversational way. Originally, my team and I thought it would appeal to entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs, but it seems to have had a wider audience appeal. Because, after all, who isn't inspired by everyday people's American-made stories? It's no secret that successful people work hard, but a discovery I find interesting is that many of my guests have a spiritual bent. They believe in a higher power, thus enabling them to be risk takers. Now, this next discovery really caught me by surprise. Almost all my guests have the heart of a teacher, and today's guest is no exception. And last, that business in of itself is creative, more so than I really ever thought, but it is. Creative is an adjective frequently used for today's guest, Miss Connie Fails, who is well known in Little Rock, Arkansas for her clothing and fashion designs for the stars and us average folks, too. Today, she is the manager of the Clinton Museum Store and founder and developer of Curbside Couture, a clothing design competition like none other. One unique requirement of the contest is that all designs must be made of recycled products. And here comes the teacher part. The competitors are all students, high school age and below. Go to flagandbanner.com/radio show and click on Connie's bio to see a video of some of the extraordinary and very creative work that she inspires in this kids. Honestly, it will blow you away. Thank you, Connie, for sending it to me. I have enjoyed it. Everybody at Arkansas Flag and Banner has enjoyed it. It's really remarkable. I can't wait to talk with Connie about her life and all of her varied career paths because she's had a lot. If you're just listening for the first time, you may be asking yourself, who is this lady talking and why should I listen? Well, Chris is here to tell you.
Over 40 years ago, with only $400, Kerry McCoy founded Arkansas Flag and Banner. During the last 4 decades, the business has grown and changed dramatically from door-to-door sales to telemarketing to mail order and catalog sales. And now Flag and Banner relies heavily on the internet, including its newest feature, live chatting. With time and experience, Kerry's business and leadership knowledge grew. As early as 2004, she began sharing this knowledge on her weekly blog. Today, she's used her learned skills to found the nonprofit Friends of Dreamland Ballroom, as well as the in-house publication Brave Magazine, and now this very production. Each week on this show, you'll hear candid conversations between her and her guest about real-world experiences on a variety of businesses and topics that we hope you'll find interesting and inspiring. If you'd like to ask Kerry a question or share your story, send an email to questions@upyourbusiness.org. That's questions@upyourbusiness.org. Or post a comment on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page.
Thank you, Chris. Is he not awesome?
He is awesome. I love it.
I mean, really?
I've done it a few times.
Golly, I'm going to turn the show over to him. I'm going to get out of the way. Thank you again, Chris. Many of you will remember my guest today when she founded and ran her own clothing store. In fact, at the break in a minute, or in the 10-minute mark break, if you're on Facebook, I'm going to show you one of her designs. I'm wearing her skirt in the studio today. But she ran her own clothing store in the Hillcrest neighborhood of Little Rock, Arkansas. It was simply called Connie Fails. For decades, Connie's original designs and excellent eye for buying fashion brought her a wide and loyal following, like I said, me, not just in Little Rock, but as far away as small boutiques in the Big Apple. Connie, one day we're going to have a fashion show of all your stuff here in Little Rock. I can see that in the future, and I want to be a part of it. I have a closet full of your clothes. In 1978, Connie met and became friends with Hillary Rodham Clinton and was asked to make her first gubernatorial inaugural gown that is now on permanent display in the Arkansas Old State House Museum. 12 years later, Bill Clinton would be elected president, and Connie had the honor of designing Mrs. Clinton's inaugural pantsuit and other ensembles for the inaugural festivities. Now that's some pressure. It was early in the 21st century that Connie decided to close her clothing store, Connie Fails, and accepted the position of manager of the Clinton Museum store. Along with running the Clinton store, she has developed a most unusual fashion show competition called Curbside Couture. Students of all ages participate in this annual fashion design program. The main rule is their garment creation must be made using recycled materials of any kind. It all culminates in a gala runway show at the Clinton Presidential Center and provides scholarships. Now is the time to get your application in. Isn't that right? Yep. We'll talk about that today on the show and learn more about how you can either get tickets to go and attend, which I think it's almost always sold out, or how you can apply for an application to become part of it. It is a pleasure to welcome to the table my creative, hardworking, and longtime friend, Miss Connie Fails.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks
Very excited to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I always say this about my guests. I've known you for years, but I really never knew you. You went to Southern Missouri State University. Is it Litchfield?
No, I was born in Litchfield. So SMS, as it was called then, is in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you were born in Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
went to school in Southern Missouri State University. What was your degree?
So I was born in Illinois, but my dad was a traveling salesman, and in the first grade, he got transferred to Arkansas.
What?
So I lived in Paris, Arkansas, Forest City, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and then he got transferred to Missouri, and then Oklahoma City, and I stayed in Little Rock. He got transferred after that, so I stayed in Little Rock. I loved Arkansas as a grown person.
What'd your dad sell?
Pardon?
What'd your dad sell?
He worked for the Rexall Drug Company.
And
So-
he was a pharmaceutical rep, I guess?
We could call that today, but back in the day, he was traveling all over Arkansas in his 54 Ford, going to little drugstores that were, in every little corner of Arkansas, tiny little towns and stuff. And it was more than just pharmaceuticals. It would be their big thing was vitamins, plenamins they were called.
What were they called?
Super plenamins.
Oh, learn something new every day. Never heard that one before. So you ended up going to school in Missouri.
Yes.
And what was your degree in?
Art. So I started out studying weaving, but I started out actually studying painting and drawing. Then I found out that they had a weaving department, which I'd never heard of. I thought, wow, I think I like that. So I moved my major to weaving. And then when I was out of school, I was still weaving, and I had moved to Little Rock, back to Little Rock, and I was teaching, and they had a weaving guild in Little Rock at that time. And I had looms in a little house on Monroe Street. I had floor looms and lap looms and every kind of loom. And I was doing craft fairs, and then I got really bored with it. So I thought, maybe I need to take a workshop or something that'll get me excited. So I went to Pennsylvania for a weavers conference and signed up for this workshop, and the woman walked in the room and she said, well, I know you're all here to do weaving, but actually I'm pretty sick of it. So I moved to Denmark on a little island because I didn't want to weave anymore. She was chairman of Moore College in Pennsylvania. And she said, now you have to remember, this is 1975 maybe. She said, so I was so sick of weaving that I started going to essentially a yard sale in Denmark and buying old sheets and linens and things and making clothes. And I thought, I think I just connected with that. I know how to do that. I know how to do that. I'm excited again. So I came back to Little Rock in the mid-'70s and started going to yard sales, estate sales, buying pillowcases, doilies, everything, and started making clothing, sold all my looms. So I did that for about 3 years, did the old Montessori craft fair that some people remember. It was in Robinson Auditorium. And a woman in Memphis, and I call her the woman with the James Bond name, Babby Lovett,
Babby, yep.
Babby, love it, was over because she was always seeking out new artists and something exciting. And she had a eclectic store in Memphis. And then after she had the eclectic store, she had a very chic store with very designer types of clothing, and she still bought my stuff. But she came, and I had taken a break from my little booth, and I came back and I said, "What happened?" And the person that was watching my booth said, "We sold all your stuff." I said, to who?
To Babs.
To Babby, yeah. And so I caught up with her. She left her card, and I called her, and she said, "I'd just like you to drive over to Memphis and talk to me about what you're doing." So I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So I went over to Memphis, and I was in my 20s, and went into her lovely office, which was so chic and stylish. And, you know, if you even look at my office today, it's an artist's office. It's got stuff piled up, and it's everywhere. And she looked at me, and she said, "Have you ever heard of a store called Henry Bendel's in New York?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, you will." So fast forward from that, in about 4 or 5 years from that, I guess, I was in Henry Bendel's Christmas catalog with my clothing.
And you were making these clothing out of sheets.
At that point, I transitioned into using scraps because I was buying fabric by then, and I was using the scraps to make my signature mark garment, which was a kimono. So I was making things that you may have bought in my store.
I did. I've got
dress, shirt, and I'll say here, it's just so. It's nostalgic, and it's funny, and it's comforting. Even in the museum store, when people will walk in, and some people won't know that I'm doing that, and I'll say, "Hello." They go, "Look, I'm wearing your dress."
Today?
Yes.
Still
So many
today?
people like you are
Like
still,
me.
It's just like, really? That's crazy. But anyway, when I was making those dresses, those pants, those shirts, I had big boxes full of the scraps because I was always recycling in my life. My great-grandmother worked in the garment district in Decatur, Illinois, and when everybody went to visit and they wanted to get rid of me, she'd say, "Connie Lee, go to the basement and dig in the scraps." So I did. I was like 6 or something like that. So that's how curbside was a natural evolution. But,
Yeah, really.
I just thought I can't throw these little pieces of synthetic, beautiful looking silk or the real silk away. And so I thought, what do I love? What is most about me? Issey Miyake in Japan. I thought, I'm gonna try a kimono. I'm gonna make a kimono that's mine, the way I would make a kimono. And so that launched my career with Henry Bendel's.
And it's lovely the way you use fabrics. So the front will be one fabric, the arms will be another fabric,
Yeah.
the back will be another. Sometimes even the front will have 2 different patterns on the front, the top and the bottom. Mine does. I have 2 of them.
That was my signature mark, too, of mixing things when people didn't do that. And how I raised a child that always wants her shoes to match her dress and her shirt and everything, I have no clue.
Let's talk about
That's what
your
our children are like.
Let's talk about your children.
Okay, we'll do it.
Nobody probably, this is what makes, you are a true hippie. I knew you when you were a true hippie, and you had your store above the run of the mill, and we'll talk about that after the break. But you also have adopted 2 children. You have, tell everybody about your children. This speaks volumes about Connie Fails.
Oh, well, so the diagnosis for me was infertile. So like, okay.
But not true.
But turned out to be not true. That's what they say happens. So be careful when you go camping. So I thought, well, but so my friend who was a therapist it's when people can't have a child and they really want to have a child, and I'm going to tell you what that really means in a second. It's just heartbreaking, and you're trying to cope with it and figure out how to get over that, or where do you go, or what do you do? And finally, my friend, and I was paying her, I'm going to pay you to help me with this deal, and she got so frustrated, and she stood up one day and she said, "This is our last session. Here's what I know."
This is your fertility doctor?
No, this is a therapist.
Oh,
who's
a therapist.
my good friend also.
Okay.
And I said, help me get over this. And so she stood up and she said, "This is our last session, and here's what I want to say to you. What you really want to do is parent, and I know you'll figure out how." So I went, ooh, that got me. So I went away and I thought, yeah, that's it. And I don't have any bias about anything. I don't choose color, ethnicity, race, gender. That wasn't on my plate. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go do an adoption. So then it was interesting to find out how hard it was to do adoption. I'm Jewish, so if you're Jewish, somebody on the other side doesn't want to give you something that you're going to raise like that. And then I'm converted, although my family history was Jewish on my father's side, which doesn't count. So that didn't work out very well either. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to another country. So at that point, Korea was doing a lot of adoptions. So I put my application in. It took more than a year. And in the meantime, Hillary was my friend already, and I said, I need you to write a letter of recommendation about what kind of parent you think I'll be. She says, okay. And then she says, to who? And I told her where it was. She said, why aren't you adopting here in the States? And I said, oh, we can have a learning lesson on this one together. So you need to know where that is. So our children were stuck in foster care, DHS. They were just stuck because of reasons that couldn't get signed off on. So anyway, I adopted Hannah, and she arrived in Memphis as a 14-month-old. And I arrived in Memphis to pick her up as 4 months pregnant. Oh. So, new law with the adoption agency, you got to fess up if you got a bun in the oven. So it's okay. So Hannah arrived August 12th, and Noah arrived January 25th.
I'll be darned.
So,
and then you didn't stop there?
I didn't stop there.
You decided to do it one more time. You adopted one more child.
I did it one more time.
And this is unbelievable that you did this.
So my friend Susan, who was adopted in 1954, and we lovingly call her the dinosaur of Korean adoptees, and we traveled a lot together. We traveled to India, to Romania to do adoption work, and I said to her one time, I think I can do one more kid. She goes, okay. So she calls me one day and she said, FedEx is going to arrive at your doorstep today. First kid on the tape is yours. And I said, oh, great. FedEx arrives. I put the VHS in. I turn the television on. I hear Susan's voice, and I see this little girl, black hair, silky hair, and Susan's voice is saying to the interpreter, tell her to put the cap on the pen. And the interpreter says in Thai. And the little girl doesn't look up. And then the little girl looks up. The interpreter's told her 3 or 4 times, put the cap on the pin. And the little girl looks up and goes, shaking her head side to side, no. And so they pan back and show a little girl with no arms. So she was putting the cap on the pin with her toes. So I called Susan and she said, oh, great, did you get the tape? I said, I did. This is a story on me. I said, what made you think I wanted a kid with a disability? She said, oh, you must have missed her personality, and she hung up on me.
Oh, wow.
So about 4 years after that, with a lot of legal work and stuff, I flew to Thailand with my husband, and we picked Kate up. And Kate is turned 31 in July.
And what made you decide that you kept looking at the tape and thinking?
Oh, my heart was there immediately. And partly I knew that culturally, I'm not sure how it is if life has moved forward, but in Thailand, the worst thing you can do, if you just want to tell somebody off, just take your shoe off and show them the bottom of your foot.
Oh.
And so I thought, this child has no chance.
Because she has to do everything with her feet.
She has to do everything.
She literally eats with her feet. She's so incredibly...
well, she drives a regular car with no special adaptations.
This girl's unbelievable.
She's tiny. She's about 4'9". She weighs about 70 pounds. Quick story, if we have time for this. I was in Walmart one night with her, and we were talking to each other, and she doesn't pay attention. And this has just been like 2 years ago or something, a chat going on. And people will stare at Kate. Kate really doesn't respond to it anymore. And so this guy was standing there, and he kind of just kept staring. Finally, I thought, okay, I'm going to make eye contact. I said, hey. He said, I said, did you have any questions? And he said, yes. He looked at Kate, and he said, did I see you driving a car the other day? She said, yes. So I was like, okay.
Oh, I love this girl.
Case
I'm glad
sealed.
she's doing it. She living in Little Rock? Where's she living?
She is. She lives in Little Rock.
All right. This is a great place to take a break. I love talking to you, Connie. You're just a remarkable woman. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Connie Fails and her remarkable life. She's the clothing designer. She was a clothing designer. I guess you're once a clothing designer, always a clothing designer. She's the manager of the Clinton Museum store and facilitator of the Curbside Couture. We'll ask her about her honor and the pressure of designing an inaugural outfit for the First Lady, Rodham Clinton, and learn how you can compete or attend her Curbside Couture fashion show with clothes designed by students from 3rd to 12th grade using recycled products. We'll be back after the break.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. If you miss any part of the show or want to learn more about UIYB, go to flagandbanner.com and click on Radio Show. Be proactive and join our email list and like us on Facebook to get an early sneak peek of each week's guest. We'll be right back.
Excellent. All right, where's Facebook? Let me show everybody my skirt. Can you hear me on Facebook?
A little closer.
30 years ago. 30 years old. I had something to close
Taking care of business. Taking care of business.
That's so funny. I still have that skirt too. Yep. And there is a thing in the works to do something with the fashion show deal about all my clothes.
Oh,
So
count me in.
yeah, thank you.
Just want to put my name on the labels and stuff.
That's right.
All right, we ready?
You let me know when you want to come back. You ready?
We're ready.
Look, hang on. I just knocked that. Sorry, my bad, guys, in there.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Connie Fails, manager of the Clinton Museum Store and director of Curbside Couture, a fashion design competition in Little Rock, Arkansas. Before the break, we talked about Connie's life, how she started off going to school to be an art student, fell in love with weaving, then fell in love with recycling clothes before it was even fashionable. Got your designs picked up by, what was the name of that? What was the name
Henry
of that?
Bendels.
Henry Bendels in New York City. Then I had her maid tell her personal life about how she birthed a child and adopted 2 children and how wonderful they all are and how exciting all of that was. And the complications about trying to adopt a child in the United States, which I've never done, so I don't know anything about, but I hear I know back when you were trying to do it was hard. I don't know if it still is anymore.
It's gotten better.
Good. So, Connie Fails Clothing Store. When I met you, you were above run of the mill. I bought a slip, I think that was probably made out of a sheet, and it had trim on it that probably came from a pillowcase. And then you decided to move down the street. So, tell us about how you start for all the entrepreneurs listening out here. So, how did you decide to start that business there? Where'd you get the money to do it? And then how did you get that leap of faith to move down the street and open up your own store?
Yeah, it was a leap of faith, for surely it was. And it was the mid-'70s, and I worked for a brokerage firm. I was totally inappropriate for a brokerage
Yeah,
firm.
I read that in your bio. I was like, a stockbroker in the 70s. You should have hung in there because the 80s were great. You'd be rich right now, girl.
No, it was worse. I was really the mean person in the back that did the margin calls. So if your account was below what we needed, I'm the one who gave the notice to you. I needed a check for $20,000 or something. So I wasn't very popular, and I wasn't able to use my creativity. I used it at night and on the weekends. I had just met the person that would become my husband, Leslie Singer, and he was all for. He said, we just got to try it. And the woman who was teaching that workshop in Pennsylvania came to visit a year after I did the workshop, and she walked in and I said, well, I'm not weaving anymore. Here's what I'm doing. And she looked at me and she said, quit your day job.
Oh.
And so that started the conversation between Leslie and I. We were not married at that time. Could I just take that leap of faith? And it was Arkansas, and women didn't dress like I was doing.
Nobody dressed like you were doing.
And George Worthen had enough faith in me that he gave me a $4,000 loan. And
Signature loan, probably. Mm-hmm. Back in the good old days.
yes, and I got those for a long time. And so the reason the Hillary thing came up is that I had opened my store in August.
Is this the one above the run
above
of the mill?
run of the mill.
Okay.
And in December, I had a little trunk show. It's the first time I'd ever done that, of some jewelry. And the guy didn't want to take the jewelry home at night, so it stayed. It was like Chinese silver, so it wasn't like gems or anything like that. And that night, I don't know if it's, we have no clue. We never found out how it happened, but someone broke in and arsoned the building. So I was standing out front of the building with the firemen. My whole upstairs was just charred and burned, and run of the mill below had all of the water damage and some burn damage and everything. So I was standing outside with the firemen discussing. And the postman came, and he had a little tiny envelope. And I thought, that's weird. What is that? Looks like an invitation to a baby shower or something. I don't know anybody having a baby. So I'm standing there, and I opened it up, and it said, Dear Connie, you might recognize me if you saw me, but you may not know my name. But my husband has just been elected governor. My name is Hillary Rodham, and I'd like you to make my gown. So there's...
You've never even met her yet.
She'd been in the shop. She said, I come to your shop and bring people from out of town because I love them to see your store.
Wow.
So I actually had a woman who had a sewing business in an old mail truck, a big mail truck. And her name was Alora. She was from Ola, Arkansas. And she had been coming around my studio saying, I'll help you sew a little bit. And I said, I could use that,
She just pull her truck right up to the front door and sew out of the back of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she would come into my store some, but she had her thing all set up as this great studio. And unlike me, she's totally organized with everything folded and pins put away and everything.
Right.
So now I didn't have a place to do that, and I needed to make Hillary's gown. So Alora pulled her mail truck into my driveway on Monroe Street down by War Memorial. We got a big, long extension cord and plugged her into the house, and we did the first gown for it's at the Old State House now.
Anybody doesn't think business is creative is crazy. We hear those kind of
Yeah.
stories all the time. That's very
Just do what you
ingenious.
got to do.
Very ingenious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you made her first gown out of a sewing machine out of the back of this woman's mail truck.
Yes. That was it.
You just can't make that stuff up. If I write
Two wild girls. I mean, it all worked out,
And so now it's on display at the Old State House.
It is.
So when did you decide? So did you decide to move down the street when the old Mills house burned and your place burned? Or is that what?
No, we restored it, but the person who owned Run of the Mill wanted more room for the business she was doing, and I actually needed more room, and by that time I was ready to have a storefront right on the street. And so I found the little building that was up by Hocot's, and Mr. Hocott still owned it. And it was actually 3 different sections of building. So I rented the first section, and after about 5 years, I took over the second section, and then eventually took over the third section. So I had the whole building by the time. Yeah.
You had a seamstress there that was sewing on site at that time?
So I had a cutter, someone that did nothing but cut things from the patterns that I designed and made. And then I had I had 2 fabulous Ruby and Rose sewers that sewed for me forever. And occasionally I would have a third sewer. It would depend on seasonally how busy that we were. Mm-hmm. So I would design things, they would get cut, they would get made, then they would just come over into the retail store, be priced, and people like you would come in and buy them.
And then you didn't just sell your designs. You
Right.
also went to market. And I have to say, your eye for buying fashion was dead on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I still have some of those pieces. Can't put my big toe in them, but I think they're darling, and I keep them.
I understand that too. But I do have an intuitively good eye about things, about buying things, I got the best compliment, and I was standing there and didn't know I was going to get it, from Scott McGee at a Christmas party, and he was introducing me to somebody who had just moved to town, and he said, you don't know who this woman is. He said, but she had the guts to do the first boutique in Little Rock. I thought,
Is that true?
wow, that is so nice. Well, nobody did what I did. Nobody sewed. Nobody had that kind of bohemian boutique.
No, they didn't.
That took a risk. And it's kind of, in retrospect, if you look, my store was the last store before you went to the Heights. So it was nested right between Hillcrest and the Heights, which were so kind of yin and yang with each other too, and what people's tastes were and how people lived.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
very much so. That's a great spot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was the phone booth up in the Heights, but
There was,
But
yeah.
they didn't do any, like you said, they didn't do any sewing or.
Right.
It was a type of boutique, but it was nothing like yours.
Yeah, and that was Bliss Thomas.
Bliss, that's
and no one else did that because I don't know. Either maybe your mom had a sewer that did alterations or something, but nobody took.
Well, everybody sewed back then.
Yeah, and no one took the risk to just go off and think that. Well, I don't know, that kind of very different.
Very different.
Not
Very
structured,
bohemian.
sewed your jackets on the outside instead of the inside, or, yeah.
So it's 12 years later, and Bill Clinton has been made the president of the United States, and you get to design another outfit that's going to be on the world stage. What an honor. How did that come about?
Well, you can imagine it was a big conversation. Friends and family and stuff were saying, oh, maybe you'll get to do it again. I said, no, she's the first lady of the United States. It's going to be Fifth Avenue. Mm-hmm. And I should have, and I thought, are you not listening to your little voice about Hillary? Because she always supports artists. She's always supporting Arkansans. And the next exhibit at the library, which we might have one line about soon, is in 1993, she did the first ever American craft exhibit. So she had craftsmen from all the United States. So anyway, one day she called and she said, so so-and-so, and I would like to come by and talk to you for a few minutes. This is after he'd been elected. And I said, okay, that's great. I look forward to seeing you. Haven't seen you since the election and all that kind of stuff. And they come in, and the person with her is a whole lot younger, and is an aide. And I can tell she's not like in the conversation very much, too much. And so Hillary said, well, I'm going to ask you if you would do my clothing for the inaugural. And I said, like your clothing for the inaugural? And she said, yes. She said, well, I have to do a lot of different things on several days. So there will be like 5 or 6 outfits a day. There'll be the inaugural suit, probably need a coat. I said, you don't like the cold. You probably need a hat. She said, yeah, that sounds good.
Did
She
you do
says,
that blue hat and blue pantsuit?
it's not a pantsuit. She didn't have pantsuit on. She had a suit on. So she had a rose-colored with a blue fleck in it suit. It was a straight skirt and a jacket and a shirt underneath it. So I didn't realize that I chose a fabric before it became popular, that little tweedy fabric with the little square that everybody had a suit out of, and then everybody gave them to Goodwill because they were so, But at that point, no one had that fabric. So we did that, and then we did the blue coat, and then I took a lot of flack for the hat because people didn't like the hat.
I loved it.
I love the hat. I thought it was
I
great.
remember. It's the
And
only thing I remember she wore.
The hat ended up having its own great story because of the girl who did the hat in New York. I sent her the swatch of the fabric, and I asked her to do the hat, and she showed me the styles, and I said, take this down a little bit, make this a little bit like this, and we got through it all. And years later, I was at market, years later, like 15 years after that, and I was at market, and I heard someone say, Connie. I'm like, okay. And I turned around. It was this woman that I'd noticed earlier that had this incredible big brimmed hat on. It was summer, and a little black and white polka dot skirt and a little white shirt. And I thought, wow, that woman looks really good. And I turned around, and she says, it's me. It's Darcy. I made the hat. I said, oh my God. She said, the hat changed my life. She said, this guy who was a big hat maker called me after that. And she said, I ended up marrying him. I live on Martha's Vineyard.
What a good
Oh, you got
story.
fairy dust all over you, girl. That's good.
That is good.
Yeah, so lots of stuff, good stuff came out of the blue hat.
Was it nerve-wracking to know that you're going to be on the world stage like that and be looked at so hard? Or did you ever think about it? Did you have those nights at night you're like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Yeah, well, yes, because the night that Air Force One, they were going to take off the next day, I told my sewers, I said, we have to finish everything. This is it. We're done. However, we have to stay here. So remember, 1992, there's no cell phones. And so we're all sewing, and husbands are calling saying, yeah, we're still here. We're safe. Yeah, we're okay. It's late, but we're safe. And so finally the phone rang in the store, and I answered it. And it was my husband. And he said, the president just called me. He's concerned about you. And I said, we're just about to make the delivery. And it was 2:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so I drove everything over to the governor's mansion. And I always call him President Clinton. I don't call him Bill.
Right.
And President Clinton came out. And he said, wow, he said, I had Secret Service out going all over the grounds. I thought maybe, I don't know, you got lost or something out here in the dark. I said, no, sir, I'm fine. I said, I just need to unload these clothes.
Down to the
Get
wire.
out of here.
Down to the wire.
Yeah, it's great. So, but it's like that thing. Of course, my son's a big cyclist, the birth baby in between the girls, and we watch the Tour de France all the time. But I look at it like at one time I thought I wanted to go to the tour, but I miss everything. If I go to the tour, I'm just standing in one spot for 3 seconds when the riders go by.
That's right.
So kind of going to the inaugural, it was later when I watched the reruns of the whole thing, I could kind of see the scope of everything. Because I just saw a Gertrude Stein quote that I love. It says, we're always the same age inside.
Yeah.
And so I'm always the same person. I'm just in that, you and I were talking about being in the moment. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I was in the moment so much as I was in, my kids say la la land. And that's why my grandchildren call me Lala. But, you're just there, and it is wonderful and magnificent that you're like the second row or the first row, and you're watching the president being sworn in. But then later you hear Peter Jennings or somebody saying your name when you watch the tape, and I go, really? That's kind of fun. That's good.
Oh, it's so good. I'm so glad I know you. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll come right back. We're going to continue our conversation with creative, risk-taking Connie Fails, clothing designer, manager of the Clinton Museum Store, and producer of Curbside Couture. We'll hear the story of how she opened and now manages the Clinton store since its inception, and learn how you can attend or enroll in her Curbside Couture fashion show competition for students grades 3rd through 12th grade using recycled products. But first, I want to remind everyone we're broadcasting live every Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time on both KABF 88.3, The Voice of the People, and flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. And that after 1 week of every show's airing, a podcast is made available on all popular listening sites and YouTube. We'll talk more after the break.
Arkansas Flag and Banner is proud to underwrite Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. McCoy began this
Whose chair's
broadcast a
squeaking?
year and a half ago
Go
with the
ahead,
intention
squeak
of
there.
offering a mentoring
Well, we sure
platform for
can.
those with an entrepreneurial spirit.
Oh,
Through candid
good.
conversation and interesting interviews
I can hear
with
your
business
chair.
and
It must be
community-minded Arkansans, listeners gain insight into starting and running a business,
hear it on the
the
radio.
ups and downs of
It's
risk-taking,
squeaking more if I
and the
just
commonalities of
butt.
successful people.
Doesn't matter, though.
Kerry McCoy, founder and president of Arkansas Flag and Banner, believes in carrying knowledge and experience forward and developed this radio show as a means of doing so. The biographies, life experiences, and wisdom of her guests would
Isn't
likely
that
go
great, though,
unheard
about
if not
Darcy?
for
His
this
name's
venue.
Peter.
Rarely do
I think
people open up
Beekman.
for an hour to an audience about their life,
You don't.
mistakes, triumphs,
You
and
don't.
pitfalls. This unique radio show allows the listener intimate access into the stories of prominent leaders in our state.
Girl, I just
Adrian
turned 70
McNally,
in July.
manager of the
It's
Arkansas Flag and Banner Showroom and Gift Shop, located on the first
30.
floor of the historic Taborian Hall on the corner of 9th and State Streets in downtown Little Rock, Arkansas. In business for 43
Well, all those
years,
baby boomers.
we offer an old school shopping experience with front door parking, clerks to help you, and department store
think I feel
variety.
better today.
Open to the public Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
8 to
10.
5:30, and Saturday 10 to 4.
All right, we're going back in. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Connie Fails, manager of the Clinton Museum Store and director of Curbside Couture, a fashion design competition for students grades 3rd through 12th, which all culminates in a gala fashion show in the spring at the Clinton Museum Store, and she gives out scholarships. If you've got a question, make a comment on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page or write this number down and call.
501-433-0088.
Give it again, Chris.
501-433-0098.
And if you're shy, you can just, like I said, watch us on Facebook, or you can creep on my weekly blog about life as a small business owner at flagandbanner.com. Or as I said earlier, you can listen to our podcasts. Before the break, we talked about how Connie did the fashion for the blue outfit with the blue hat. I did not know that. I did not know that. How fun it is for Hillary Rodham Clinton. The outfit that Hillary wore in the inauguration. I guess you were right there when you saw Maya Angelou give her poem.
Yes.
That was
that's awesome.
good. You know she's from Arkansas.
Stamps.
Stamps. I know.
Grandmother. Raised by her grandmother.
I know, isn't that wonderful? So it's time. You've had Connie Fails clothing store and designer store for how many years? And you've decided to move to the museum store.
Almost 30 years.
And Hillary comes to you and says, "We're about to open the Clinton Library. Do you want to run the store?"
Actually, it was like this. I was watching the library get close to being ready. And of course, I'm all about retail. So I was thinking there will be a museum store in there. So I called the president's office and I said, "Would you just give him a message?" I said, "The library's coming along. If he wants some help with his museum store, I'd be happy to help him." They said, "Okay." They called me back and they said, "He said sell your store and do his." I said, "Would you just tell him I'll call him back?" So I thought, okay, Connie, that's a little bit of brevity on that. You just should listen and think about this a little bit. And so I thought, gosh, at that point I was 55. And I thought, what a great opportunity to have a whole new career. And I've known the Clintons so long, I thought museum stores have an obligation through the IRS, thank you very much, on the choice of your product in your store. About 95% of it has to represent your exhibits, in our case, our person, our temporary exhibits, our permanent exhibits, the history of everything. So there was a lot for me to learn. But I thought I also bring to this table humor and the things that they like. So I thought, I can do this. I think I want to do this. There'll be some hiccups along the way, but it's been a big learning curve, and I'm just so passionate about how I represent the president and the former First Lady, Secretary of State Clinton. I love doing book signings. I love doing personal things that I can do that they need with. Most recently, President Clinton, it's just a few weeks ago, and I'm working on this one. He loves to give President Bush socks. And he gave him the first pair from my store was one with a black Labrador on it, okay? And then he gave him a pair with his image on them. So then he had someone call me and say, ask her if she can make bipartisan socks. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Is that going to be a donkey on one on the
I'm
left foot?
gonna keep it a secret for now.
So you make custom socks? So you design a sock and send it to a sock maker, and you get a custom sock made?
Yep, that's how it works. Not knitting anymore.
You're not knitting.
I'm not knitting anymore. Yeah, you do. You just work on your idea. You toss it out. You say, "This is what I think I want to do." Luckily, I do have the background in fashion. So, like, if I'm designing T-shirts or hats or other things, I'm ahead of the curve on that.
You at first they wouldn't let you put the Clinton Museum store, in the library. It had to be down the street in the River Market area, and that was a disappointment, I think, to everybody.
Well, including when they told me. But you just have to get over it and go on. So there was a legal reason, and the legal reason involved a rebate from the city if you improve the downtown district. And we all know that the library being put in Little Rock, Arkansas, where it is, brought our whole downtown to life again, which is just incredible. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I'll do anything for President Clinton. And so if this store needs to be down here until they resolve this legal issue to see if they're going to get the rebate, and it was several $1 million. And so it took 7 years and 2 trips to the Supreme Court, but the foundation finally, the city had to pay the foundation. And we used that money to restore the bridge, which had been closed for over 50 years.
The walking bridge?
Yes. So the bridge on our property, the old Rock Island Railroad, we used that money so that we would have this incredible running, biking, walking, pedestrian bridge.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we don't hear the good news about the things the Clintons do, and we just hear so much crazy stuff all the time about not just the Clintons, all the politicians. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know how any politician can stand to be in office because they work all the time for the good of the people, but it's the mistakes they make that get talked about on TV all the time.
I just heard this week, and I'm kind of the person in charge of defining quotes so that I can put President Clinton's quotes on coffee mugs or pins or whatever, T-shirts or whatever, in hopes that people will absorb some of them. But one quote that I guess President Clinton says all the time, and I hadn't really heard him say, is, "You've got to get caught trying. You've got to get caught trying." The other one, though, it's the only quote I've ever heard, and that applies to why you don't hear. I'm talking about hearing things that people do get caught doing good, okay? Mm-hmm. And the one quote, when my now 8-year-old was 5 months old, President Clinton was holding her, and she was holding onto his little finger, and he looked at her and he said, 90% of life is hanging on. I thought,
that's
wow,
a good one.
Doesn't President Clinton know that? So
90% of life is hanging on.
It's a favorite quote of mine.
It's a great tweet. Also, you're 55, and you've gone from being every entrepreneur out here will know this. You've gone from being an entrepreneur who you never know if you're going to get a paycheck, mm-hmm. to being a federal employee. Is that not right? Not
a federal employee, a foundation employee.
Oh, I thought you worked for the federal government when you took that job.
Nope, it's foundation.
But with that, you get.
So now I became someone who actually gets a paycheck every time everybody else does, someone who gets health insurance,
right,
and all that kind of stuff. And I'd put my heart and soul into a small business for 30 years and making sure my employees had as much as I could do in every single way that I did it. And I'm a big person in the community. I'm always out giving to some auction or doing something like that. And the decision was great. I was just ready to take a break and, in a way, be cared for on the things I had to worry about a lot, and devote the rest of myself to loving the job that I do for the Clinton Museum
It
store.
was very stressful when you opened it up.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was. There were a bunch of cats chasing Jell-O in that, building. So it was just, but I thought when it was happening, sometimes I'd sit down about 10:30 at night and I'd still be there, and I'd think, this is, to me, from the outside looking in, this is the way the Clintons' life has always been.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts going on. lots of ups and downs. And I thought, I'll get control of this. I'll get this.
Are you good at delegating?
Of course not.
That's what I think about sometimes on stuff like that. I'm thinking, when you're an artist, you kind of want to do everything yourself.
Yeah. I've learned. I've become better. And when they started getting interns, I thought, oh my gosh, please don't do this to me. I have to have an intern. I have to train. But I've gotten better at it.
You've been service oriented ever since I've known you.
Mm-hmm.
You've been paying it forward all the time. Does that come from somewhere in your family?
My parents, my parents were born in the 1920s, and my dad was in World War II and the Korean War. They went through the Depression, but they made a nice middle-class life for my brother and I. And what they taught me was I don't think they thought this directly, but if you see something and you can do something about something, then you do it. So if you can contribute your time, or your money, or your craft, or whatever it is, you have an obligation. If you see that you can fix something or help something, you do that. And I just think that's where that came from.
You've always been good at that. I want to tell everybody that you're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and that I'm speaking today with Miss Connie Fails, manager of the Clinton Museum Store and director of Curbside Couture, an annual fashion design competition for students of all ages using recycled materials. Let's talk about the Curbside Couture.
Sure.
How did it come about?
So a few years ago, let's see, it's been 7 years ago now.
Wow, that's a long time. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, the exhibit that was upcoming was an Oscar de la Renta exhibit. So Oscar de la Renta did all of Hillary's clothes for the second inaugural. And
She's moving on up.
Yeah, she did get on Fifth Avenue, and it was great. And I didn't know.
Did you like them?
I didn't know him personally.
No, did you like the clothes?
Oh, yes. I thought they were stunning.
Okay.
And
he has her seal of approval.
yeah. And I will say that the press, I think, was so, what's the word? I want to say mean, but I don't want to say that. But the press was not
critical.
They were critical of her and of her things that people shouldn't be judged on.
They do that to women. What's up with that?
Yeah, so they were doing
yeah.
that business, and she was so much smarter than me. So she if you're going to criticize my legs, I'll just put pantsuits on, and I'll stop that, And I thought that was great. And I actually did a black coat for her that had an applique on the back, and the press office called me one day during the time that she had to go to the Whitewater stuff, and Neil said, Connie, did you put a dragon on the back of her coat? I said, of course not. Why would I do? What? She's my friend. What do you mean? He said, well, the press says that thing on the back of her coat. And so I saw her a few months later, and I looked at her. I said, you're wearing my black coat. She said, do you like it? She said, I just took that off. She took the dragon. I said, it wasn't a dragon.
What was it?
But it was just an applique that came from the 1930s garment district. She liked vintage old things like that. But anyway, so Oscar de la Renta, I just want to go see more of his clothes again. So that exhibit was so spectacular, and the craftsmanship, and I don't care if you don't care about clothes or whatever, you would so appreciate. Those clothes were amazing.
I saw them.
So the foundation asked me if I'd like to speak at something since I'd had a career in fashion for so long, and I said, no, I don't. But I said, I've had this idea, and I would love to play with it. They said, well, what is that? And I said, I want to kind of mentor kids to recycle anything into fashion or design. They said, okay. So I kind of thought this will be a one-hit wonder. I'll just run as fast as I can, scramble around, and get these kids to do some stuff.
Well, you're back to your roots, recycling.
Yeah, because I only had a 4-month window before I needed to have a little show. So that year, I managed to get about 30 or 40 students to participate, and Babby came over and did a little MC thing for me and stuff. And then it was over, and this was December when we had it the very first time. And after it was over, the foundation said, that was so successful. It was so great for the education and everything like that. They said, we want to do it again. And I said, oh, okay. I was real perky. And they said, in April. I said, no. I said, April's just 4 months away. I just did this, Mm-hmm. So they said, but April is Earth Day. I said, okay, I'll stand up for that one. So it was quite a chore to do that again in that close period of time.
You did 2 in 8 months.
Yeah. Did. And then, so then after that, we got kind of on a better schedule. And it's grown every year. Last year, we had 250 entries. The registration will open in August. Well, we're in August now, but the education department puts it up. It's usually right as school starts. and it had to become kind of a juried show because I'm the MC for the show, and in order to get like 85 students on the runway within an hour, which I cannot do because think about it, there's only 60 minutes in an hour. I only have 1 minute to talk about all the work these kids have done for months and months and months. So I usually just cheat a little bit and I run over an hour, but it does mean that the kids that did the most work or did the most whatever, we have a little scale that we kind of judge things on. Did you really use recycle? Did your grandma help you? Because I tell them I don't want to see anybody else's voice in this but you. And so I have 4 people that help me with that. Amy Bell from South on Main, Kato Momaloo, Erin Lorenzen, and new is Bryant Phelan, who does the most amazing leather purses.
So everybody that applied, you had 200 apply that year. So does everybody that applies gets to participate, and then you pick down to 85 that you're actually going to show on the runway show?
They don't, because there's no other option for participation. We've tossed around and talked. We need a bigger place. That's why we'd like people to sponsor it more. We'd like to have a big corporate sponsor for it. The Great Hall at the library is where we have the show. Last year, I figured out a new way to configure, and instead of getting about 350 people in there, I was able to get 420 people to view the show. It does become a sold-out show every year, but all the money goes back into bring Curbside back again for more students. And I've had one student get an internship in costuming at Saturday Night Live.
No
I've had
way.
one. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
And she was one who in the very beginning told her teacher, I don't want to do this. And her teacher looked at her and she said, because it was going to be an after-school art project, she said, I don't want to do this. She said, okay, it's an assignment. It's like, I wish I were so smart.
So how do people apply? They go to the Clinton Museum store and click on...
No, you go to Clinton Presidential Center,
Okay.
CPC, Clinton Presidential Center, and go to the education bar. And unless they've reconfigured it, you have to scroll down quite a bit, and you go to events, and then Curbside Couture will come up.
So you can probably Google Curbside Couture.
If you Google Curbside Couture, I will be the very first thing that comes up in Google. I'm happy to say, all
Great.
about curbside.
Oh,
so
good.
and you can lead yourself there by doing that.
And then there's an application where you fill it out there, I guess.
You just kind of register and say you want to participate, and I will tell you what happens is that sometimes students like, I want to be a fashion designer. And let me just mention, it's 3rd through 12th grade. So you'd be amazed at what 3rd and 4th graders can do. But once they get into it and they registered for it, sometimes they go, oh my gosh, this was so much more work than I was willing to put into anything. Or something happens, they move, or they get so involved in another subject at school that they go, I can't do this. So, but, we'll end up, so this year.
Do you decline anybody?
Yes, we do. Because we have to jury it down, and there's
At
nothing.
the beginning, do you decline them, or do you accept them all at the beginning?
Accept all registrations.
And then at the end, you begin to call the group towards the end.
So let me say that we also have a mentoring thing. So the show is usually in April, and then we have a mentoring thing in March, 4 weeks before the show, so they can ask questions. And then the delivery is 2 weeks before the show, and then that's when the jurying comes in, and we pick the 85 or 80 or 90 or whatever it is that year that will be on the runway. But I'd like to find an alternative for those who don't get picked, because there's still so much work that they've put into that.
Yeah.
And I like what Kato said. She said, no one goes away from this event crying, because even if they didn't get in, they learn so much, and it'll drive them on.
You talked about the mathematics that go into it.
Mm-hmm. Mathematics, science, they dye things, they have to gather things, they look up history, they study stuff.
On the video, yeah, right. On the video that you sent me, one girl made her dress out of maps.
I loved it. And she didn't say this, I don't think, on the video, but on the maps, which were this wonderful swirling dress, you could see little square things. Those were pictures of her with her family at the places they had visited in Arkansas on the map.
Clever.
So if she went to Murfreesboro, she put the picture of the crater of diamonds and her family digging around and stuff on there. That's great.
Did she laminate them all? It looked like they might have been
she
laminated.
did. Yeah, she
so
did.
she laminated them all, glued them together?
I'm not sure how she put that one together, but often these kids, 95% of these things are not sewn. They are held together with glue or staples or duct tape, but they look couture. I mean, there's the fireman thing was Japan. Get ready,
Yeah.
It was
She
amazing.
was good.
Yeah.
And y'all go to flagandbanner.com and click on radio. You can Google Connie, like she said, Curbside Couture and find out stuff. But you can also, if you want to see the video, go to flagandbanner.com's radio and click /radio show and click on Connie's bio to see the video that we're talking about. These kids are so extraordinary. The things that you inspire in these kids, I'm telling you, it's really great. Connie, I have a gift for you. I don't know what you give to somebody who does everything. You don't give them clothes. You don't give them anything about Arkansas or the United States. And I happen to own a flag store because they already have all that stuff. So I know you either just got back from the beach or going to the beach.
We just got back.
Well, that's too bad. 'Cause I missed it anyway. It's a beach towel that says flagandbanner.com on it.
You know what? We love beach towels at our
I do
house.
too.
We use them in the shower and bath rather than a towel towel. This
So
is awesome.
Let me show
That's
Facebook.
great. Let's see.
There you go, Facebook.
Thank you, Kerry.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have just been.
Oh, it's been a joy. Thank you.
You're great.
Thank you.
Chris, who's my guest next week?
Well, that's going to be Chelsea Wakefield. She's the director of UAMS's new Couples Center, whose mission is to help couples navigate the unique challenges of relationships in the 21st century by providing counseling, group therapy, and community education about love, desire, relationships, and sex.
Your favorite subject.
Absolutely.
You know, she's got a workshop coming up. And since I'm out of town next week, Chris, you're going to be here all by yourself.
I will be. That's okay.
You'll be fine. We're going to play her show from about, I don't think it's been a full year since she was on, but we're going to play her show where she talks about dream work, relationships. And then we're going to give the dates out at that time for her workshop that's coming up. I'm going to give it to you right now. It's called the Couples Center. It's at the Couples Center at uams.edu. It's September the 18th, 15th, October the 2nd, and the 9th. So go to Couples Center at UAMS. It's a 6 to 8 o'clock at night, 4 or 5 times. And I don't remember how much she said it was, but it wasn't expensive. But she's good. So she'll be talking about couples next week on the rerun. So that'll be good. Chris, I've enjoyed working with you.
It's been fun.
You're a great co-host, isn't he?
Thank you,
You were
Chris.
a great host. Well, thank you, Connie. I love the interview.
It was great, wasn't it? She's a great gal. If you have a great entrepreneurial story that you would like to share, I would love to hear from you. Send a brief bio and your contact info to questions, that's with an S, at upyourbusiness.org, or you can send me a message through flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. And finally, to our listeners, thank you for spending time with me and Connie. If you think this and Chris, if you think this program has been about you, you're right, but it's also been for me. Thank you for letting me fulfill my destiny. My hope today is that you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that it, whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. All interviews are recorded and posted online with links to resources you heard discussed on today's show. Subscribe to her weekly podcast wherever you like to listen. Kerry's goal is simple: to help you live the American dream.